Welcome to StereoWise Plus. We cover news and do product reviews for consumer electronics, and we are really excited for the product we have into the review today. If you hopefully you saw the title for the review and you're as excited as we are. If you're not, well, let me go ahead and tell you why you should be excited. When it comes to in-wall speakers, there's not very many reviews out there, probably largely because the product reviewers out there don't really have the ability to review in-walls. Well, we're actually in the process of building a theater room in our basement, so we actually have the ability to be able to do in-wall products. Hence the need for doing the review today. With the current pandemic and many of us being under quarantine for so long, some of you may have realized that after binge watching Netflix or going through all the different trilogies, whether it be Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, after doing all the extra watching, you may have realized that your home theater gear may not be up to par with what you would like it to be. So you may be in the same boat as we are, where you're thinking about it's time to do some upgrades to your home theater gear. So we're in the process of doing a series of home theater gear reviews to help maybe give you some ideas of different products that you can look at for for upgrading your equipment. And also, given the current economy, we also like to be able to support made in the US products. And the product up for review today, RBH Sound, they actually satisfy both of those requirements. Not only are they made here in the US, but they're also a really good high quality product that will give years of good use and service. So RBH Sound, they have a couple different model lines. Their first line is the Visage, which is their entry level, and that has a couple sublines in that series. And then their Signature series is their top of the line, and the Signature series also has a couple sublines. They have the standard Signature series, and then they have their Reference series, which is what we're reviewing today, is one of the speakers in their Reference series. So the Reference series starts off with the 740R, which comprises of a single woofer and a single tweeter. Stepping up from the 740R, you go to the 760R, which is an MTM design with a woofer, tweeter, woofer. And with that design, you can mount it either horizontally or vertically and use it for either left, right, or center. Stepping up from the 760R is the model we're reviewing today, which is the 663R. With this one, you get 3 woofers and 2 tweeters. This model is designed for a larger home theater room. It works great with either a larger room or a room where you have multiple rows. So when it comes to sound quality, you get the best sound when your tweeter is at ear level. The problem when you have a theater room where you have multiple rows is you have 2 rows that you need to get sound to. So this design, you have 2 tweeters. So the design, the difference in distance from one tweeter to the next, it's about 12 inches. And typically that's about the height difference between rows. So when you're mounting the speaker in your wall, it's ideal to mount it so one tweeter is at ear level for the front row, and then the second tweeter, the higher tweeter, is at ear level for the second row. So both rows of seating get ideal sound from the speakers. Also with this design, some locations may not allow for a separate center channel, and if that happens to be your room it'll work both as a left and right as well as a center channel. So in that scenario, the upper two woofers and tweeter will be your left and right, and the lower tweeter and woofer will be your center channel. So you can actually get away without having a center channel speaker, and these two drivers will be able to do both left and right and act as a center channel. Now this speaker system, I look at it as two different components. You've got the enclosure, and then you have the baffle with the drivers. To get the best sound possible, you really need an enclosure for your speaker. So like a typical tower speaker or bookshelf speaker, the speakers are housed in a cabinet, and that cabinet is tuned to those drivers to get the best sound possible. A lot of in-wall speakers are just that. They're just speakers that are designed to fit in your wall, but there's no cabinet for them to install into, so they don't get the sound quality that you can find in either a bookshelf or a tower speaker. But that's not the case with RBH. They understand that need for having an enclosure to get the best sound out of your drivers. So they've designed this speaker system with an enclosure. It's 3.5 inches wide, so it fits perfectly in between studs of a wall, and the baffle installs inside the enclosure. And I love the design of the enclosure. It's designed so when you're in the construction process like we are, you just mount the enclosure in between the studs, and it has this nice metal ring that goes around the sides of where the baffle is to protect the baffle when you're in the construction process and you're doing your drywall. So the drywall will get laid right up against, to this metal baffle here. And then once you're done, you'll drywall, you'll tape and texture, and you'll paint. And once you're done with the construction process, then you can go ahead and install the baffle into the enclosure, and you're done. So an example of how the cabinet is designed and tuned for the speakers themselves. This one is tuned for the 663R for it being used as both as a left, right, center, or if you don't have the ability to have a center channel, using it as your center channel as well. There's two different compartments. There's one for the upper, and then there's also one for the lower, and it's a fully sealed cabinet. On the back of the baffle is a small little foam that seals the baffle to the cabinet when it's screwed in, but the cabinet itself is also sealed, and they have the wiring that goes from the wiring connector into the cabinet itself to wire to the crossover network. And inside, where they've drilled the hole for the wire to go into the other compartment, they've sealed it as well. So the attention to detail in the design is really good. You actually do have two separate sealed enclosures here. That way both sections of the drivers are completely sealed. I really like the design and construction quality of the enclosure as well. It's made out of really nice thick 3/4 inch MDF, which is ideal for speaker cabinets. It has internal bracing inside to add strength to the enclosure. You've got polyfill, and the enclosure is also specifically tuned for the drivers for this speaker. Now let's go ahead and turn to the drivers themselves. So there's two different drivers in the system. There's the woofer, which is an aluminum cone driver, and then the AMT tweeter. And both of these drivers are step-ups from the standard drivers in their Signature series. The AMT tweeter was co-designed with ARM Cantus. It's similar to a ribbon tweeter. You get a really transparent, natural, very detailed sound with great air and an incredible soundstage. And unlike a ribbon tweeter, because of the design, a ribbon tweeter is flat, but with the AMT driver, there's actually folds in the metal, in the material, so you actually have an increased surface area. That gives increased power handling and increased dynamics, which is really critical, especially for home theater. They also include, as I mentioned before, an improved woofer driver compared to their standard Signature series. You have a phase plug in the middle. The phase plug allows for increased cooling handling, which helps to provide increased power handling. And the phase plug also gives smoother details in the higher frequencies. And if we flip it upside down here, you can actually see the drivers on the other side. We've got a nice, really large magnet for large power handling capability. And there's also a bumped pole piece for increased voice coil excursion, which is also really nice for home theater for those dynamics. Having a increased voice coil excursion allows for those improved dynamics. And I also like you see from the side here, it also has a cast aluminum basket, really high quality. The crossover network is also modified slightly over the standard Signature series to take advantage of the improved reference drivers. You have really high quality coils, caps, resistors. You have gold plated push terminals. And I really like the high grade, large size internal wiring. A lot of speakers come with just 16 gauge, maybe even lower internal wiring, but it looks like we've got 12, maybe even 10 gauge wiring. Really high quality and well made internal components. And as you can also see, there's actually two different crossover networks, and that's for this 663 design. So as I mentioned before, this can be used as a left, right, and center channel, or if you don't have the capability due to your room location to be able to use a center channel, this can be used as a center channel as well. So in the enclosure, there's two different sets of wires, and depending on how you're going to be using the speaker is how it's internally wired. So if you're using it as a full left, center, and right, then you'll use just this one internal crossover. But if you can't, if your room won't allow for a center channel and you need to use this as a center channel as well, then you have this extra crossover network to be able to use this woofer and tweeter as your center channel. So it has the capability to be wired both ways, as just as a standard left, center, right, or if you need to use this as both your left and right and your center channel. Really great design. Really high quality materials, and also the baffle itself is 3/4 inch MDF. Nice finish, really well made. I'm very impressed with the quality of the materials and the quality construction. It's definitely their top of the line speaker system, and it shows. I can't wait to hear how they sound. Along with this video review, we're also going to be reviewing the installation process of how they get installed in the walls, as well as the sound as well. So please stay tuned for those further reviews. Please like and please subscribe.